All right, let's see. Is it gonna work? What the hook gonna be? I don't see anything. That's not good. All right, guys, I'm waiting for the live stream. Tell me if you can see me. Can you hear me? There we are. I see me now. There's just a delay because we're streaming in high resolution. What's up, guys and gals and y'alls? Let me pop out your chat. We're doing something different today. Let me pop this chat out. Pop that chat. Pop that. I don't know what that is. Hold on. Bloop, bloop, bloop. Doo, 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 doo. There we go. Hello, presently present Jay Brooks, Erica Black. Good job. You broke it. You know I broke it. I see you, Carissa Davis. What we talking about? Kathleen Gipe. Okay, first off, I got to say what we're doing. I'm doing something different. You know, I alternate between locals and Facebook going live, and everyone's all butthurt. It's like, is today my day? Is today not my day? And then YouTube's guys are just like, why the hell am I still subscribing? So today I'm like, okay, bitches and guys and bitches, guys who are bitches. I'm going to stream right to YouTube. Only share the unlisted link with supporters on YouTube, locals, and Facebook. That way I see all the comments in one place on YouTube. It streams in very high quality, and I don't need to record it and re-upload it and do all that. So tell me how you like this. It may be something we do intermittently. It may be something we do more commonly, but I think it's the most inclusive of the options so everyone can participate live. All you need to be able to leave a comment is a YouTube account, which most people have. If you don't have it, then you can't comment, but you can still watch. You are in sync, Midnight Baker. It's what I do, Midnight. Woohoo, finally caught a live version. Satinder Nagra. Welcome, Satinder. Jane Doust. Hi, Z. And Fresno's in the house with Daniel Jackson. I'm sorry, Mr. Jackson. Whoo, I am for real. Never meant to live stream to your town. I've apologized a trillion times. Yeah, I'm glad you guys like. Koodle, so the video's good. Resolution's good. Jay Brooks, good. Looks good. Pete Campion, good. Sounds like a plansy. Danielle Miller, good. I love YouTube personally, says Ashley. The chat is harder to reply to, though. Yeah, so, you know, we play around it. We play around with it. We'll mix it up, you know. One day it'll be locals, one day YouTube, one day Facebook, one day all three at once. We'll see. David Wilson, AZ, longtime follower. Question. Any new insights into dosage changes for kids? 12-year-old who's 70 pounds. Is there any potential risk as the current dosage is the same for all age groups? I've been wondering this for a long time, and I have not gotten a good answer on this. So I don't know. Like there's speculation among some that, oh, the dose is an adult dose and it's too much for kids, and maybe that's why you get a little myocarditis risk there. But it's not clear, and I just don't know the answer. So you need to look at data at lower doses and see what kind of immunogenicity it promotes. By the way, at some point here, we're gonna have to talk about boosters. I shared a link on locals to an NPR piece. There's a lot of interesting talk about boosters and why and what. One interesting thing that Peter Hote has said in a MedPage Today piece is that it may be that it's not so much, you know, it may be that the original vaccines that were spread out by 4 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks in the case of Pfizer, 4 weeks in the case of Moderna, that wasn't enough of a distance. They did it because it was an emergency and they needed to keep an interval that wasn't months long. But a lot of the vaccines that we give that are spread out more than a month, right? Measles is like 6 weeks apart. MMR, I think like six months apart. I forget the exact schedule. I'm not a pediatrician, but I play one on TV, and I slept in a Holiday Inn Express last night, bitch. And it may be that the longer intervals actually create much longer lasting and more robust immunity. And it may be that in this case, a third booster may be the last you ever need of a COVID vaccine. That was Peter Hotez's speculation, which would be nice. Hey, Atlanta's getting rough. I feel you, Cassie. And Cassie, you know, I'm sorry, Miss Jackson. Aren't they from Atlanta? Yeah, you know, Delta's going to surge in the south first. Actually, Bay Area looks like it may have inflected. It's already on a plateau, and we may see it come down. So hopefully that's the end of Delta around here, but we'll see. We'll see if my video comes to fruition on the Delta surge. My pulmonologist has recommended I get a booster. then I think you should get a booster. I'm just wondering about for healthy people. You know, what I'd really like to see is a decrease in severe disease death with a booster. Now, what the NPR piece was saying is, well, they're trying to get ahead of this because there's some early Israeli data that suggests that, and these are all old people, it's not standard healthy young people, there is some waning protection against severe disease as time goes on. And so that you'd want to get ahead of. And they want to do it earlier rather than later, because by the time you roll out the vaccine campaign, it's already months down the line. You're in the winter and people are dying. So I think that's why they're, you know, jumping the gun on the booster thing. You know, and then there's the argument that why aren't we giving these vaccines to the third world where they can actually prevent variants instead of, you know, double, triple vaccinating our fat American pieces of shit? Well, you know, I don't know. I see a little validity to every single argument. Everything is a little true but partial. We don't know the full answer, and it depends on our values. What was I saying about that? There was another piece about that. It'll come back to me. Nice being in here. Missed getting into the live videos lately. Jan P. Welcome, Jan. Danielle says, emergency school board meeting in South Carolina. Lots of kids in quarantine after 2 days of school. Dude, so here's the thing. Kids are too young to be vaccinated. They are going to get Delta, right? Like, it's rampant, and they're not getting it from other kids necessarily. They're getting it from their parents. They're getting it from adults because it's prevalent in the community. And if you test them, if they have a sniffle and you test them, they're going to test positive. Now, some of these kids are going to get sick. The vast majority, meaning clinically ill, where they end up in hospital, severely ill, but not that many. Not that many percentage-wise, but if you infect every kid in America, then the numbers are going to be enough that you're going to fill up hospitals, right? So I think for, you know, on a kid-by-kid basis, if they don't have risk factors, et cetera, they're probably going to be okay. So this is just going to keep happening until Delta runs its course. So you just have to wonder, what should schools do? Well, if Delta is rampant in your community, maybe you should just put a placebo mask on a kid so kids feel a little better about it and parents feel a little better about it. It depends on the values of your community. There's some real anti-mask communities that it's just not going to fit. I don't know how much it really helps, honestly. I just don't know that I just haven't seen data. So how can I say, right? Intuitively, it might help. I don't know. But that being said, the question is, do you shut down schools? Do you do, I mean, what do you do? How long do you quarantine the kids? This is the problem with the, virus that you're testing for, and it's all over the place. Bottom line is, every winter viruses rip through schools. That's what they do. COVID's going to be no different. The question is, how much harm is it going to do to the kids and to the adults that take care of them? RSV is showing up in daycare facility around here. RSV is all over the place, Pat. It's all over the place. What up, Vicky Doc? Nicole says, my 7-year-old will probably be the only one in class with a mask. Dude, that's rough. That's rough. If the general culture is like not to mask. I don't know, man. I don't know. There are mask mandates here in California, but I'd be a little uncomfortable with my 10-year-old unmasked in a Delta surge, and can't be vaccinated. I'm just as a dad, I'm just like, that's just my bias. I'm just like, just put a mask on. It'll make me feel better, right? I don't think it's going to hurt you. I really don't. I think the dangers of masking are overblown. I do, with the exception of the danger to our liberty, the danger to our choice, the danger to science. If it turns out they don't work, why the hell are we doing it? That's pure precautionary principle. And, you really have to think, okay, make sure there's no harm first, right? I don't think there is. Kids are pretty resilient about that stuff. Dawn Hopkins, but they're not resilient to closing schools. Don't do that, please. A lot of RSV in Alabama. You guys, dude, in Alabama, they have a lot of RSV and a lot of COVID. The ICUs are all full. They have like no ICU beds. Our county's indoor mask mandate was reinstated as of today, Jenny Finn. Get used to it, man. It's all over the country. I don't care. Look, this is just me. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Look, if they mandate it, I personally just don't care. I just don't want to shut things down. I don't want to close schools. I don't want to close businesses. If you make me wear a mask inside, I don't care. That's fine. But I don't want a bunch of shutdowns because that's crazy. And the cost of that is probably going to be higher than whatever incremental benefit to public health there is, right? And people are just fucking tired of it. Don Hopkins says, I kind of want my kids to get COVID. You know, between you and me, if I didn't have that weird medical bias where I'm like, oh, you know that if my kid gets COVID, they're going to get MISC and end up in the hospital, I'd feel the same way, you know? My son with Down syndrome was exposed to a child in his classroom with COVID, all kids masked and teachers vaxxed. I live in the Bay Area. Kristen Massa, man, that sucks. That sucks. But, you know, again, even with the Down syndrome, I suspect his risk is going to be not that high. But, you know, it's still rough. Kids need school and so do parents. That's the key thing, Vicky Doc. We need the damn school. My kids need to get their ass into a place that isn't where I am. They need to go and get peer groups. And I mean, they've become so tight, the two sisters, they've become so tight with each other. They don't even really talk to other kids. And I'm like, that's cool. I like that you guys are bonded over the pandemic. Like you used to be a little bit at each other's throats. Now you're like best friends, but y'all need to get real friends in your age group. Like go out there and do that shit. And you need to start hating your parents when you do that. And like, you're ruining my life, Mom. Like I want that shit. That's what I want the teenage years to be teeny. Do you feel like NPR is not a good source of info? I'll be here. Love your videos. Wiggy, so when I posted the NPR piece on Locals, I said, hey, this is pretty good for NPR. So their written pieces are actually better than their radio pieces. When I listen to NPR, I'm like, this is basically a liberal platform. That's really what the entire lens of it is. Liberal leaning, left leaning. And I think if you're not aware of that, you're in a bubble. And I wasn't aware of that for years. I used to listen to NPR like that was the only news I ever listened to. And I just assumed the world was a certain way. Then I left the Bay Area. And even the NPR I listened to in Las Vegas was much more like balanced. I was like, wow, it's not all about social justice, equity, and race. Like the world isn't seen through the lens of power structures. Like that's literally what it was like. I was like, what the hell? Every other piece is about like, you know, some weird fucking social justice thing or some identity politics thing or seeing like politics through this lefty lens, which look, man, that's how I got my news from 2001 when I started listening to the news more after 9/11. But this piece that I shared was actually very balanced because it had all sides. And they interviewed a bunch of different people. So I thought it was well done. At its best, NPR is transcendently good. It really is. At its best. At its worst, it's just a fucking political garbage. Like just like Fox is on the right. It's the same thing, right? I'm not picking on a particular ideology. I'm just saying there's clear bias in the lens of how they report. Let's see, where are we at? Renee, 200 students positive, 3 days since opened. Vaccinated teachers getting breakthrough. Most teachers are vaccinated, I know. Trouble is 6 to 10. Yeah. Well, and the question is, what does it mean? All these positive cases, how many people get sick enough to end up needing real care? That's going to be where the rubber hits the road, It's going to be rough, guys. Delta fucking sucks. I was prematurely happy prior to Delta, thinking this thing was really going to be I wouldn't have to hear about it anymore. And then Delta showed up and it really showed us how vulnerable the unvaccinated population is. And that includes some kids, actually any kid under 12. And it showed us how you can still actually have breakthroughs as months go by and the vaccine efficacy drops off for infection. Severe disease, still pretty protected, but even that may change, which is why they talk about boosters. But I really need to see the data on that before I even do a video on that, right? Like, I really need to know more about that. Yeah, Vicky Doc thought the article was good. Ashley thought the article was good. NPR changed in the 80s. Is that when it changed, Kevin? Was it more balanced in the old days? All news was more balanced in the old days. It's a Delta dumpster fire, Danielle. I know. Renee says, I think it means they're more running around and not even testing, so underreporting on numbers. Oh, I'm sure, right? If so many kids are being infected, there's a ton of unreported cases. The question is who cares if they're not ending up in the hospital? But the problem is just by numbers game, the way Delta works, you're going to end up with people in the hospital and it's going to get real busy. And healthcare workers are tired, like super tired. My kids in school in Sacramento area already quarantined an entire class. Modified quarantine asymptomatic kids go to school but can't participate in routine. Oh, man. I mean, it's just they're figuring it out as they go. And, you know, teachers better be masked and vaccinated, honestly. You know, especially older teachers. Will the boosters make a difference if 90 million remain unvaccinated? Well, they'll make a difference for the vaccinated. I do think so. They'll be more resistant even if it's circulating. But yeah, I don't know. I just wish everyone would just go, who hasn't been exposed naturally, to go get vaccinated. I just wish they would. We'd be through this faster. Look at this though. Matt McLeod of the Clan McLeod. Vaccinated with Pfizer, currently recovering from COVID Delta. Positive on Saturday, 2 days of hell. Would it be safe to assume I now have more broad protection and likely not need a booster? Yes. I think it is safe to assume that. And you know what's interesting, Matt? Please tell us when you got your Pfizer, your second dose of Pfizer. When did you finish that series? I'd love to know that. Because if you finished it recently, it would be interesting. Actually, we'll talk about it. So tell us, Matt. Please weigh in, and I'm glad you're feeling better. Notice you didn't die. As Vader says, did you die? No. Then patient satisfaction is 100%. Joanne, how do I feel about mandatory vaccination? I'm very conflicted about it. I've talked about it before. I'm very conflicted about it. I don't think we should ever have to resort to that, but it looks like we do. With kids' vaccinations, we've had to, right? Because people are jackasses with kids, but with adults, with a new vaccine in a pandemic, I'm just like, just do the right thing and get vaccinated. And if you've been naturally infected, why should you be mandated to get a vaccine? That's my biggest concern. Matt McLeod, March 23rd. Okay, so it's been months, right? Pfizer, so here's the bad news about Pfizer. It looks like Pfizer's immunity to infection wanes considerably faster than Moderna in the Mayo Clinic preprint. And so it might be that because Pfizer also was compressed like 3 weeks apart, that you didn't get, it's almost like that first 3 weeks apart was more like one dose. The second dose will be your natural infection or a booster. Moderna seems more like 76% protection still. Pfizer was down to 42%, and in Israeli studies, even less. So the Moderna might be slightly more effective longer because the doses were spaced out by yet another week, which may have made a difference, or the dose was quite higher. The dose of Moderna is higher. I mean, I was knocked on my fucking ass with that second Moderna dose. It was just bad. Tell us more about your symptoms, Matt. Tell us how you were feeling during those 2 days, man. The more insight we get, the better. Jess Chartier, a director of a hospital in Alabama, was on the news literally in tears about how burnt out her staff is, begging people to get vaccinated. I don't know if we can do this again. All right, let's talk about that, Jess. So, you know, I had Wes Ely on the show. Unfortunately, I can't release that video that we recorded until his publishers allow it on September 7th. But he was telling me a story about how he came home one day and his wife was like, what's wrong? He's a critical care doc at Vanderbilt. And his wife was like, what's wrong with you? You seem really down. And he goes, man, the nurses in our facility are so burned out. These were bright-eyed, bushy-tailed nurses, and veteran ICU nurses, and they are done. They're telling me they want to leave, they want to quit. It's just fucking heartbreaking. And I was like, yeah, this is the worst. This pandemic has been the worst for healthcare professionals, right? You get a reprieve, you think you're done, and then boom, another fucking thing, right? And then you got a jackass like me, you know, doing videos where I'm like, hey, this is done, get vaccinated, don't panic. And then Delta happens and people are like, shit, you know, it's really fucking depressing. But what he said in the interview, which I can give you the preview of, right? He said, listen, sometimes it's okay to just say enough and step away and go. He said, go get recovery, whatever that means for you. Step away and go get recovery, and something will happen where you'll come back just like awakened. And I think he's right. You know, I think he's right. I really do. The problem is a lot of us don't have the financial resources to do that, to just say, I'm going to quit for a year, travel the world, or meditate, or pursue whatever spiritual thing I'm looking at, whatever it is. It's very rough. My 27-year-old daughter got Delta a couple weeks ago, vaccinated in March with Moderna. Wow. How bad was her Delta, I wonder? Did she have severe disease, or was she, reasonably okay? Yeah, there's a ton of burnout, Ashley. Danielle Miller, I just got a notification today from UPMC that they're offering monoclonal antibodies for anyone exposed to SARS-CoV-2. Yeah, so this is something I haven't dug into more about, monoclonals in the setting of Delta. How effective are they? I need to really research that more. Really interesting. They're probably trying to get people better so they can come back to work. Matt says, symptoms, probably the worst flu symptoms I've ever had. Initial symptoms were insane nasal congestion and aches. Aches, chills, fever spiked to 105. Wow, twice. Saturday to Monday afternoon. Woke up Tuesday much better. Okay, Matt, I have a theory. And stop me if you think I'm crazy. Yeah, that's brutal, brother. I'm glad you're okay, but I'm actually not surprised you're okay. And your rapid improvement on that next day where you were like, oh, I'm better. Let me tell you my theory. Your first 2 doses of Pfizer were acting almost like a single dose, like the first immune priming dose. And the second dose was your infection. So now you have viral particles replicating in nasal passages, so you get some of the nasal congestion symptoms, which you wouldn't get with a vaccine. But the rest of your symptoms were triggered by your immune response to this, your memory immune response. This was like getting a Moderna booster. And you were knocked on your fucking ass for 2 days with aches, high fevers, feeling terrible, but you weren't getting a lot of the, say, cough and other symptoms that come with viral replication. Isn't that interesting? That's my theory for you. We'll see if we can't test it, but it could be interesting, right? Yeah, like a real bad flu, Coodle 1. And I wonder how much of that is the booster effect of getting that re-exposure. It's immune system. Like when I had my Moderna, I felt like that. And that was all my immune system. It wasn't the virus, right? It was spike protein triggering immune system. I know, damn that immune system, Carissa. I wish hospitals would offer retention bonus money for loyal employees. Yeah, that'd be great, right? Kaiser does that. I mean, for doctors, you get a pension if you stay there so many years and so on. COVID knocked my spouse and I out for 2 weeks without vaccination. Yeah, because then you have the immune response plus viral replication, unmitigated viral replication. That's the worst of all worlds, right? That's a lesson. Get vaccinated. Get vaccinated. With my Moderna shots, I had horrible muscle aches. Yeah, Ashley. Yeah, me too. Kevin says, good thought process. I mean, maybe. We'll see if I'm right. I mean, how do we know? How are we going to test it? Josie says, I had 102 fever for 2 days with the second Pfizer. Good sign. Pretty good sign. How long should I wait now post-booster to start my prednisone? I can't answer that, Ann. You got to talk to your doctor. That's a little too granular. If I get it wrong, I kill you and you're not my patient. J&J Crowd Boost. How's it doing in comparison? I don't know. J&J data is still forthcoming on the booster, like getting another J&J shot versus should you boost with one of the mRNA vaccines, or do you not need a booster with J&J? I don't know the answer yet. Matt says, I didn't lose my sense of taste and smell until Monday, though. Towards the end of the worst. Wasn't an initial symptom. That's why I think most of your initial symptoms were all immune response. They weren't viral replication. Viral replication and cytopathology, in other words, where the virus is actually killing cells in your olfactory area of your nasopharynx. I did a video on this. That happened later. Isn't that interesting? So those first symptoms were all immune-based. Really interesting. And then you probably knocked off a few, killed a few of those smell cells, and they'll come back over time. I forget the name of the cells. I did the video and I've forgotten it. It's months ago. You can look it up on my website. Let's see. Where are we at here? Wow, we have like 200 people watching. That's cool. So this is a good way to aggregate people. Although when I go live to locals, like 250 people watch, just supporters. It's crazy. Locals is a real it's because it's a newer platform. Facebook will usually get 100 and some, which is cool. If I went live to YouTube alone, we'd have like 10 people. It's just a smaller pool of supporters, but they're hardcore. Midnight Baker says, I'm figuring out how to recreate myself to be able to financially survive stepping away. Booked a week in Maui for starters. Yes. I love what everything you just said. Yes. Yes. Because, we don't do ourselves, our patients, our families, any service by flogging ourselves when we're done, right? Step away. For me, stepping away meant going and building a clinic. And then when I came back to clinical practice, I was reinvigorated. I was like, this is great. I love this again. Right. And it was much less. I did much less of it. Risa says, I don't think it announced to YouTube supporters. I posted in the community thing. So it should, Risa. Tell me if you're a YouTube supporter, if you got a notification through the community page for this live, because I see a lot of YouTube supporters here. But a lot of you guys are on multiple platforms. Sorry, you have to nix your OnlyFans now. They're rolling up the carpet. Novel idea. Oh my God, dude. Z-Dog's OnlyFans page. Matt's symptoms sound exactly like my round of H1N1. At the time was very, very beginning of that pandemic. Yeah. Big immune system response. Oh yeah. Okay. So Happy Ever After got the notification. Okay. So it worked. Good. Your digital partner says, I went out in public more than usual. Oh shit, it's scrolling fast now. Hold on. Where did it go? Where did your digital partner go? Oh man. Come on. Why can't I find it? Oh, that's crazy. It just totally disappeared. I wonder if they deleted their comment and maybe I just can't see it. Oh, no, wait, no. Yeah, message retracted. That's what it is. Okay, never mind. It's not me, it's you. Bitey T, Jonesy in the house. I got mad when I made this account and it is Bite Me, YouTube with a typo. Very nice. Well played. Matt McLeod. And to speak to the Moderna being better, more effective over time at preventing disease, period. My wife had Moderna. She's been in the same house, not really able to quarantine. She's still negative. Ooh, that's an interesting mini study, isn't it? It could also be, Matt, you got to remember this possibility that you got a bad batch of vaccine. That can happen. These things are, because Pfizer in particular is real persnickety. It's got to be refrigerated at this temperature and this and that. And Moderna a little more forgiving, maybe? Maybe something happened there. Who knows, right? We can't tell. A lot of things we just don't know. Cheryl Yates, message retracted. Hi, Z. I made it. You may proceed. R-rated review, Mom. I'm proceeding now. All right, where are we at here? Should we, Bay Area, says Kristen, expect a dark fall and winter given what we're witnessing in the South right now? I don't know, Kirsten, because we are having our own Delta surge and it's already plateaued. So maybe not. Bay Area is a little weird, but we'll see because they're so hardcore at mitigating, very high vaccination rates. All that bodes a little better for us, I think. All right. But of course, those are famous last words. Where are we at? How's the video quality? Is it pretty good on YouTube? It usually is. And the sound quality, I cranked everything up. So, yeah, I'm channeling your deceased mother-in-law and persnickety. Kara N., what y'all healthcare providers saying in response to patients asking for vaccine exemption letters? I got a letter from a doc today, patients asking for that. This doc was actually sympathetic because it was a patient who'd already had, it was for their kid. and like some like camp was asking for a vaccination, and I was like, well, with kids, it's kind of like you're weighing risk and benefit. Mandated vaccine always feels a little chunky to me, but the doc didn't want to do an exemption because there wasn't a medical exemption, and I agree. I don't think that's appropriate at all. But yeah, other patients asking for it's like, fuck off, dude. Just no. There's no medical exemption for a vaccination. There's only medical indications. I mean, unless you had anaphylaxis or something. Patient vaccination letters are an interesting topic. I know, Jess. They really are. Video's good. Sound's not as good as on locals. Really? Surely am. Maybe it's the app. That's interesting. Dr. Z, I just made the tail end of your video. Quality looks good. Thanks, Joanne. How are you, darling? We were talking about spirituality as a thing versus science. Jolene B, can't stay on too long. I'm at work. I don't want to get written up. I'm already on alert. Hell yeah. I like that you're risking your job to hang out with us. All right, let's shift gears a little bit then before we wrap up, just because why not? I've been listening to this guy, Adyashanti, who's like a real awesome spiritual teacher. Like, you know, he's Angelo DeLullo's like idol. Like that's who this guy is, right? Has a Zen Buddhism background, but also very influenced by Christianity. And he has a book called Jesus Resurrected about the Jesus story and reading the New Testament from an angle of awakening enlightenment, which I thought I'm about now maybe a little over almost halfway through, and it's just great. It's just beautiful. It's so interesting, you know, this connection to what Adyashanti calls divine being. And I think Christians can call it Holy Spirit, but it's the being, that sense of presence, of like, it imbues everything. It's been there since as long as you can remember. And it was probably there before you could remember. It's the one thing that doesn't change in your life, this sense of awake presence. Even that's not doing it justice. And what's interesting about it is you don't have to believe it. You don't have to take it on faith. You can experience it as it at any time by just turning your attention inward and onto the now. Even this idea of the now as a thing, objectifying it, but it's what you're really pointing at is presence, awareness, being, and spirit, whatever you want to call it. Like its names are legion. It is the fundamental core of our being. And anytime that sort of the form of the world is swirling around and you're caught up in it and you're stressed and you're burned out and you're all of that, you have it within your capacity. You just may not know it, or you may not have tried it, to drop out of all of that, to stop being lost in that swirl of experience, the form of the world, and drop into the underlying presence from which that form is even experienced, without which form doesn't exist. And that presence isn't separate from all this form. It's the background on which form is experienced. I don't know a better way to talk about it. But a simpler way maybe to talk about it is to just suddenly drop everything. And you're just here. And you can do that anytime. It's always there. And when Adyashanti was talking about different parts of the Jesus story, I'm going to start sounding like a preacher. I'm the only agnostic preacher on the planet. When he's talking about the Jesus story, he takes different pieces of it and describes what the deeper meaning from a mystical, spiritual standpoint might be, if you strip away the literal meaning and you go into that. And one of the stories was Jesus is on a boat in the New Testament. I forget which apostle wrote about it, maybe multiples. Jesus is on a boat with his disciples. And the disciples are shitting their pants because there's a storm and the boat is being tossed around and it's taking on water and it's chaos. It's a maelstrom. And during this maelstrom, Jesus is asleep on a cushion on the boat. And his disciples are flipping out. They're like losing their shit. And so they wake up Jesus and they're like, dude, the shit's hitting the fan. Like, what do we do? And I'm paraphrasing here. I don't remember the exact words, but Jesus kind of gets up and goes, be still. Stop. Be still. And the waves stop. The storm stops. The boat stops rocking. And everything's chill. And Jesus is like, sits back on his cushion. And you would think, oh, well, if you take it literally, there's a supernatural thing going on here where Jesus is doing this thing. And you're certainly entitled to see it that way. The way Adya interprets it is this is the metaphorical story of an enlightened being, Jesus, who's connected to the divine ground of being, to presence, to spirit, to what he truly is, which is everything and nothing. The form is just one manifestation of what he really is. So the storm and water is really often used in spiritual circles as a metaphor for the unconscious, for purification and the unconscious. And here's this storm of unconscious, of thoughts and feelings and emotions and trauma and stress and worry and regret and memory and projection. And there's this boat with Jesus and his homies on the boat. His disciples, who in the New Testament really are not the sharpest tools in the shed. Jesus tries his best to teach them this. Let me show you what this is. Like, we're going to talk in parables for the masses because they're not ready to hear all of this. But I'm going to tell you direct, this is what's up. This is what enlightenment is. This is what God is. And they're like, And they're on the boat and they see this happen and they go, who is this guy? Who is Jesus? What has he just done? And they don't see that what he's pointing at is that when you're connected to presence truly, in an unshakable way, you know that's your true identity. No unconscious material, no storm can ultimately perturb you when you choose to put your attention in presence. It will still, it will calm. You're in the center of the storm always. That's what you are. His disciples were trapped. Their attention is trapped as being in the storm, and they look at Jesus, see him centered, and can't understand who and what he is. They can't see the truth of what he is. And it's such a powerful and beautiful story to point at what is there. Jesus's life was the story. It was what he was pointing at. It was what he was transmitting. Right? So anyways, I found it really beautiful and fascinating. As Tag Moniker says, the disciples were just regular slobs like most of us. Exactly. They were ego-bound humans like most of us, whose attention is trapped in ego and thought and form. But they all have the capacity to wake up, right? Bite ET, or bite YouTube. Be still is a phrase we've always used in West Virginia. When I say it in other states, people think it's odd. I love it. Be still. Be still. It's a dissect it for a second. Be still. So to be, what is the fundamental I am of being? Be. Just to be is not to do, it's not to think, it's not to project, it's not to be in time, it's to be here now, as Ram Dass would say. still. Being itself is simultaneously the profoundest type of stillness. Nothing moves at your core nature. Everything moves through you. Form emerges from the stillness that is your core, the being, the awake presence that is you. And all of this just emerges. And you're all of it. You're all of it. Everything. Every atom, that's all you as that stillness. And so that capacity is there in everybody. That's what Jesus is pointing to. He's showing the disciples. He's like, see? And they're like, they don't get it because they're still trapped in this, right? They haven't awakened. West Virginian here. She's right. Be still. Christy Spears. Yeah. Ooh, Don Hopkins. Human being, not human doing. Very good. Christine Sotmarie, let go of the need to do anything is my reminder. So that's one of the most powerful meditations. Sit, make nothing, do nothing, just be, just allow, surrender. It is harder than it sounds. Because, why is it? Why is it harder? Because of the human mind, because we're prisoners of thought, because the thoughts reflecting in consciousness, that hall of mirrors, are designed through thousands of years of evolution to do two things: capture our attention onto a thought and guide us to the next thought. It's a disease. So sitting and doing nothing is a process that takes work initially, because you have to keep pulling your attention back gently, non-judgmentally, to whatever's happening instead of into thought. And what happens as you continue to do that, it's miraculous. Thoughts calm down. When you don't keep provoking the pool by poking it and listening to it and touching the wave and creating more waves. Every time you try to see a thought, you're touching that thought wave and it creates more waves. What happens when you let the thought wave go? Oh, it's a thought. It's a thought. Oh, it's a thought. Yeah. I'm not going to touch it. I see it. I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to touch it. What's here now when there's no thought waves? In between those waves, what's the water? What's it made of? Look there. Stay there as long as you can. That's it. That's meditation. That's the highest meditation and the simplest. Name of the book, please, Wiggy. It's an audiobook only. I think it's called Resurrecting Jesus by Adyashanti. Hang on, I'm going to write it down. By Adyashanti. Now, if you're a literalist, hardcore Christian, like the earth is 5,000 years old, all of that, he may say some things in this that might trigger you a bit, because he does kind of focus on the spiritual aspects of Jesus' teaching and not the literal aspects. And he's also quite critical of how religion over time has lost some of its spiritual center and is more focused on rules and morality and those kind of things, which are all important, but they were not the core of, in his interpretation, what Jesus was saying or trying to convey to people through his life story. It's really quite fascinating. I have not yet read Untethered Soul, but many have asked me to, Christy. I'm going to have to check it out. Sherry got the chills. Ann Curry says, love this, but I got to go get ready for happy hour. Loved all my locals. Happy hour sounds phenomenal. Oh, it's 4:30 Pacific. I need to get dinner for the kids pretty soon here. Debbie is a 2-hour drive to and from work. Wow. Careful of paying attention, but often alone on the road. It's a great time to meditate. Great time to meditate, because a lot of driving is this kind of unconscious thing, but you're actually quite awake and aware when you're open eye meditating. You're very aware. It's very hard to be startled. Yeah, Dory, we lost a bunch of people with the conversation switch. We always lose about 50, we lost actually not that many. We still have 150 people watching. It's a little surprising. Usually when I start talking about that stuff, which is good. Let's be honest. If you don't want to hear that stuff, like, it can be very triggering and annoying. And if you're not interested or ready, or, you can actually destabilize people. You can. That's why, that's why Adyashanti says Jesus doesn't just go direct with his teaching sometimes. He uses parables. He uses stories. He uses acts of like healing and stuff to point indirectly at what he's saying. But then he goes to his disciples offline and says, hey, this is what's really going on, which is said in the Bible. It's like he told them directly what these parables mean, right? They just didn't get it. Even they weren't ready for it. And so that's perfect when people auto-regulate. They go, you know what? This is not something I'm interested in. Perfect. Best to turn it off. Don't try to shoehorn it, because you can actually I think you can harm your own path by doing that incorrectly, Having brain surgery is the ultimate surrender, MK Moore. Yes. Any kind of surgery, you're surrendering. You're going to be unconscious. But brain surgery is the next level. Jan P loves them parables. Off topic, but is Tom still around? Haven't seen him in a minute. I talked about him yesterday, Jess. I just was texting with him. Yeah, he's like doing his Bitcoin thing. Happy as a clam. I think he's got another baby on the way, number 3. Crazy, right? Nuts. Kendra Okenes. I've been thinking about getting Angelo's book to get more into awakening, but still contemplative, Kendra. Well, Kendra, if you're even interested at all, like to the point where you're thinking about it, stop thinking and just go get it. It's $10. Just get it. And if you read the introduction and you're not kind of into it, put it down and wait until you are. It's really good. It's very direct. There's no parables here. This is just, here's how you do this. And it can be heavy duty for some people. All right. Matt McLeod. Thanks for the talk, Doc. Now I'm going to spend the rest of the night wondering if I ever was actually vaxxed. I'm sorry. Forget everything I said. I'm just speculating, brother. Love the convo switch, though. Needed that. Ah, man. I love it, dude. I love it. Ann Curry says, he used parables so that he could speak in a way that would relate to their everyday lives. Now I really got to go. Yes, but they're also less direct. They're less direct. You have to it's kind of like the way Adya kind of described it was, it's kind of like a Zen koan. It's kind of a riddle that you can't answer conceptually, but you have to feel and experience. That's what the parables seem to be. All right, guys. Love y'all. Oh, Kendra's sold. All right. Good. Good. I trust me. It's the real deal. All right. This was fun. Let me know, actually, real quick before I leave, let me know, do you think this was a good idea to go to YouTube, or should I keep mixing it up? Let's see. Yeah, let me know in the comments. And this is so easy now. Just going to YouTube, it's so easy. There's one button. I know exactly when the stream ends. Everything is easy. It's like mentally less taxing for me. Sometimes I like that. Many times I like that. All right, guys, until next time, we